every adventurer needs to be well armed, be it with their own teeth and claws, or a blade, or shield, or stout club. My first character, who I have mentioned before, began his life as a ninja. Later on, I re-kitted him to be a scout, one of my favorite character classes from Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 is the scout. The other one is the warlock. One day I hope to play a gestalt of the two in a campaign that will no doubt be ridiculous and much fun. But my scout had a, shall we say, penchant for collecting artifacts. By the time the campaign ended, he had accrued a modest stable of legendary items. The one which I wish to speak of to you today is a legendary blade called the Witchblade. This blade had nothing to do with pimple-faced hags and everything to do with an interrogative. It was spelled W-H-I-C-H, blade. Witchblade. The reason being is this item was equal parts blessed and cursed. It resembled in form a plain katana, had a similar handle and a similar sheath to what you would describe as just a plain ornate katana. But it was far from that. The reason it had its name is because when you drew the Witchblade, you never knew which blade would come out. Every time I drew the weapon, I would roll on a D100 chart to determine what sort of weapon would end up in my grasp. This could end up from a lowly dagger all the way to the mighty blade Excalibur itself. Unfortunately, this blade had a habit of rolling particular results frequently. I never rolled all the results on the chart, but I frequently would pull out a chair. Yes, a common chair, which I would then immediately use to just sit down and wait. Because in order to prevent the abuse of the weapon, it had certain rules. I could draw and replace the weapon as often as I wished. However, I could only keep the weapon out for a certain limit of time. I think it was 4 minutes. After that, the weapon would automatically sheath itself to prevent me from, say, drawing Excalibur and then never sheathing it again. Well, there was one instance in particular where I drew the mighty Excalibur. And the Dungeon Master had applied stats to the weapon. It basically elevated you to a near godlike status for the amount of time that you wielded it. You could instantly slay undead. You could shoot fire from your hands. You could heal your allies. You radiated an aura of good that would damage enemies around you. And the one time I drew it was particularly fortuitous. I only drew it the one time. We were traversing an underground city, ruined, abandoned, infested with the ghosts of its former denizens. In the beginning of the first fight, we began to prepare ourselves to face this volley of ghosts, and I drew the Witchblade. And then the Dungeon Master checks the chart and describes that the rest of the party sees a blinding light come from the back of the group where I was standing. I had drawn Excalibur. I proceeded to charge into the fray, and because the weapon gave me the ability to instantly slay ghosts and undead, I made very, very short work of the horde of ghosts, turning what was intended to be a long crawl through this labyrinthine underground city into a short narrative walk that consisted of 4 minutes of us charging forward and killing as many ghosts as I could before the blade expired. That was the most notable instance of the Witchblade. However, there was a cursed blade that was the counterpart to Excalibur that was equally bad and equally terrible. Drawing Excalibur instantly changed you to a good alignment. Drawing the evil blade instantly changed you irrevocably to an evil alignment. Fortunately, I never drew that blade. It would have caused problems. But most of the time, it was not so epic. Usually I would draw just a mundane weapon, as I said, a chair, or the blade's personal favorite. There was a particular cursed weapon that when you drew it, it would instantly disperse a cloud of deadly poison, affecting everyone, including myself, within a certain radius. The party began to fear when I would draw the weapon, because it resulted in this poison cloud blade far more often than it should have. Nonetheless, the Witchblade is one of a stable of artifacts I collected in that career. But those are stories for another time. Thank you for watching.